ये अखिल भारतीय देवांग देवांगन कोस्टी कोस्टा फेडरेशन के गूगल मीट संख्या 464 में आप सभी का स्वागत है। मैं राजीव देवांगन रांची झारखंड से आप सभी को नमस्कार करता हूं। स्वागत करता हूं हमारे राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष श्री अरुण सर का। और आज क्योंकि दिन बुधवार है और हमारा विषय रहता है कैरियर एजुकेशन बिजनेस से संबंधित, और इसी श्रृंखला में आज का विषय है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट। और इसको बताने के लिए हमारे बीच हमारे चीफ गेस्ट के रूप में उपस्थित हैं श्री मधु अप्पा जी, बैंगलोर कर्नाटका से। हम सभी जानते हैं मधु अप्पा जी सर एक बहुत ही एक्सपीरियंस्ड चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट हैं। और सर पिछले कुछ हफ्तों से हमें फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स और इससे संबंधित कई बातों के बारे में हमें जानकारियां देते आ रहे हैं। फाइनेंस एक ऐसा सब्जेक्ट है जो कि हम सभी की ज़िंदगी से डायरेक्टली जुड़ा है, चाहे हम कोई बिजनेस करते हों, चाहे हम कोई सर्विस हो प्राइवेट या गवर्नमेंट। फाइनेंस हमारे ज़िंदगी से डायरेक्टली अटैच्ड है, जुड़ा हुआ है। तो फाइनेंस और इसके अलग अलग एलिमेंट्स को जानना हमारे लिए बेहद ज़रूरी है, जिससे हम अपने बिजनेस को या अपने सर्विस को एक बेहतर ढंग से कर सकें। तो इसी उद्देश्य से सब्जेक्ट लिया गया है फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स। और इस विषय पर जानकारी देने के लिए जो हमारे चीफ गेस्ट हैं मधु अप्पा जी सर का, सर आपका मैं हार्दिक हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूँ आज के इस गूगल मीट में। और आपकी द्वारा दी गई जितनी भी जानकारियाँ पहले भी रही बहुत ही उपयोगी रही हैं। और इसी विषय पर को आगे लेते हुए मैं आग्रह करता हूँ मधु अप्पा जी सर से कि सर आए और इस विषय पे हमें और भी जानकारियाँ प्रदान करें। श्री मधु अप्पा जी सर।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू वेरी मच। एक्चुअली आज फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट्स क्या बिना इनकम टैक्स का एक सेशन ले रहा हूँ। इनकम टैक्स हम लोग सभी जानते हैं कि इम्पोर्टेंट है। फर्स्ट थिंग, सेकंड थिंग, इनकम टैक्स का इफेक्ट तो ज़्यादातर बहुत लोगों को होता है। फॉर एग्जांपल सैलरीड क्लास है तो भी इनकम टैक्स इम्पैक्ट है, बिजनेस है तो भी इनकम टैक्स का इम्पैक्ट है, या कोई रिटायर्ड होके उसका कोई इन्वेस्टमेंट का कुछ बैंक इंटरेस्ट या एफडी का इंटरेस्ट कुछ आता रहेगा, उसका भी इम्पैक्ट है। और कोई लोग रेंटल में इनकम लेते रहेंगे, बिल्डिंग या प्रॉपर्टी के बारे में सोच के इनकम, उसका भी इनकम लगेगा, उसका भी इनकम टैक्स का इम्पैक्ट है। तो इस विषय में मैं आज से पूरा इस महीने जितने भी हो सकता है उतना सेशन में इनकम टैक्स के बारे में लूँगा, ताकि कुछ बेनिफिट हुआ तो अच्छा रहेगा, और टीम को भी कुछ जानकारी देने का मुझे इच्छा है। जस्ट सर सेशन वो मेरा लैपटॉप से ओपन हो रहा है, जस्ट एक मिनट। अभी स्क्रीन दिख रहा है ना सभी को?
यस सर, स्क्रीन विजिबल है, विजिबल है।
ओके सर, थैंक यू। तो इनकम टैक्स के विषय में ये मेरा फर्स्ट सेशन है। सो मेरा ऋग्वेद का ये वर्ष आपको सभी मालूम है, आनो भद्रः कृतवो यन्तु विश्वतः let noble thoughts come to us from all directions. So let's begin. So I just want to highlight the statistics थोड़ा आपको जानकारी देने को इच्छा कर रहा हूँ. This is the expected GDP growth in financial year 22. 8.7% is expected, but as of today, it is again revised to 7.2%. In fact, IMF, I think, has revised it, saying that it will not grow by 8.7%, but it will grow by 7.2%, which means actually the earlier projection के हिसाब से देखा तो हमारा GDP growth would have been very high, means higher compared to other countries like China or UK or USA. But due to the inflationary pressure and things like that, now there is a revision expected that GDP may grow only by 7.2%. Of course, the revision is there for other countries also. Okay, now just want to briefly touch upon Income Tax Act. What is the purpose of the Income Tax Act? There are mainly two purposes of the Income Tax Act, which is who is liable to pay tax. Okay, first thing is who is liable to pay tax, and second thing is in respect of which income. Okay, please note that in respect of which income is actually the burden on which there is a tax. So the purpose of the Income Tax Act is to find out who is liable to pay tax, and secondly, in respect of which income the tax has to be paid. Then some of the general contents are: the Income Tax Act is the act which is extended to the whole of India, including Jammu and Kashmir, because some of the acts are not applicable for Jammu and Kashmir, whereas Income Tax Act is applicable for Jammu and Kashmir as well. Then this act is effective 1922 during the British regime. However, Independent India Act was enacted in 1961, which is effective from 1st April 1962, and subsequently the act is as it is applicable. Then this is the based on the constitution list of union list on levying of income other than agricultural income, which is entry number 82. So under the constitutional provision of entry number 82, this act has been enacted. So the main thing is this is extended for whole of India and effective from 1st April 1962. Okay, now we all keep hearing, okay, bill has been tabled in the parliament, discussions are going on. What is bill? What is act? How it impacts us? We just want to give you the basic understanding. So basically, what happens is the act is the provision or the rule regulation which is enacted by the and approved by the parliament and assented by the president of India. In case if it is a central act, in case if it is a state act, it is the governor of that particular state. So once it is assented, it becomes an act, and it becomes act and it becomes effective. So the act actually what happens is it empowers the Central Board of Direct Tax (CBDT) to formulate rules and implementing the provisions of the act. Okay, so the once the bill is nothing but the act before passing the bill. Bill is basically the bare act, or rather the rules and provisions as it is tabled in the parliament for discussion. Once the bill is discussed and agreed upon by the majority of the members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, or lower house and upper house, and any demand for rectification or changes will be accompanied, like will be allowed. Sometimes is allowed, sometimes may not be allowed also. And then all that is agreed upon, and then the final agreed act is placed with the president for assent, means his signature. Once it is assented, signed off, then it becomes an act which is effective. So in this Income Tax Act, what happens is the act enables the or empowers the CBDT, that is Central Board of Direct Tax, to formulate rules and regulations and implement the provisions of the act. So, for example, um, the act says salary income is to be taxed. Okay, is salary income is income. Okay, so the CBDT is empowered to find out what is the salary income of an individual, and then ask the individual to pay tax. So the CBDT rule basically formulates all the rules and regulations required to implement the act, implement the Income Tax Act. Then what happens is there would be a lot of amendments which keep coming in. So notification in Government of India official gazette is sufficient for amending the rule. So new act, as I said, amendment bill needs to be passed in Parliament, and circulars. Basically, what happens is there would be a lot of circulars issued by the Central Board of Direct Tax, which are basically clarificatory in nature and binding only on the Income Tax Office and not public or not courts. It is more like if there is a query, if there is a doubt, then a clarification is given by the CBDT saying that in respect of this provision, this is the clarification, and you have to you have to follow this circular in order to implement the act. Okay, next is just general. I want to talk today. What is basically the meaning of SSC? SSC is basically any person by whom any tax or sum of money is payable to Government of India. Okay, so it can be even a zero sum payable, but it can be any tax payable also. So an SSC is a person who owes money to Government of India under the Income Tax Act. He is an SSC. Whether the tax liability is 0 or 100 or no liability, but still he becomes an SSC. Then assessment year. Assessment year means basically period starting from 1st April and ending 31st March of next year. So for example, for the financial year 1st April 22 to March 31st March 2023, the assessment year is 1st April 2023 to 31st March 2024. So assessment year is nothing but the next year on which it is applicable. So it is like this: if my income earned is from 1st April 2022 or 2021 to 31st March 2022, that gets assessed in the next year. So that is why it is called as assessment year. Assessed income being assessed in the next year is the assessment year. Then previous year is nothing but the financial year on which the income is getting assessed. Okay. So if there is any confusion, just make note of it. Previous year is nothing but the financial year in which you have earned income. Assessment year is nothing but the next year in which your income earned in the last year is getting assessed. Okay. Income. Definition of income is very exhaustive. Means basically, it's not exhaustive. It is basically exclusive. Means what they are trying to do is they are trying to define what is not income. What is not income means what is exempt income. If your money received or if your earning is under exempt income, then it is not liable for tax. If it is not under that exempt income, then it is liable to tax. So there are certain list of incomes which are exempted from tax. If your earning falls under that exempt income, then you don't have to worry, that it is okay, basically not income and not liable to tax. So it is like To give you one simple example, if you go to a hotel and if you ask for let's say food which is मेनू में रहेगा वेजिटेरियन और नॉन वेजिटेरियन. वेजिटेरियन में रहेगा let's say green, they would put some green dot. Non vegetarian would be red dot. So it is basically, you have to assume that okay, if it is not red dot, that means it is non vegetarian, I mean it is vegetarian. रेड डॉट नहीं है तो वो वेजिटेरियन है, अगर रेड डॉट है तो ये नॉन वेजिटेरियन. So it is like that. So they are giving a list of red dots only, which is non-vegetarian, which means you have to assume that rest all is vegetarian, like that. Okay. Now there are some predefined sources in the act. One is salary, second is house property, third is profits or gains from business or profession, then fourth is capital gains, and fifth is any income from other sources. So for last one, jo income from other sources is also called as residual clause, residual provision, which means if any of your receipt does not fall under any of the above four category, then it will necessarily fall under income from other sources, provided it is not in the exempt income provision. Okay. So if it is not, so let's say you have some earning, you have got some earning, which is not a salary, which is not income from house property, which is not profit or gains from business, which is not capital gain, then it becomes, and it is not exempted, then it is automatically coming under income from other sources. Then Income Tax Act में there are 298 sections and about 23 chapters. This is just information, nothing for you people to note. So hope I have been able to give you some basic information here. Then next, I'm just moving. Okay, this is just another statistics. This is the as of 2021 का survey है. Number of households that own a car in each state of India. If you notice, all India value is about 7.5%, and value in 2018 was 6%, and value in 2021 is 7.5%. Means there is a growth of about 1.5% in 2 years, 19 and 20. In 2 years, there is 1.5% growth. The highest is Kerala, which is about 24%, which means 1/4 of people in Kerala own a car. And next highest is undivided Jammu and Kashmir, about 23%, which is again almost about 1/4 of population owns a car. And lowest you can see is Bihar, which is about 2%. Means car penetration is very low there, 2%. And some of the developed states like Punjab is about 21%, which is rich state. Delhi about 19%, Maharashtra about 8%, Gujarat about 10%. Then Tamil Nadu 6.5, Karnataka about 9%. So they are all, even Assam is about 8%. They are all kind of high income states based on this car analysis, number of car household that own the car. And another statistics, this is just information. TCS is the company which has earned the highest profit in the financial year 2021 and 2020. Next comes the Indian Oil Corporation, which is a government-owned company. Third is Reliance. Fourth is Infosys. Then Bharat Petroleum, which is again government-owned. Then Tata Steel, ITC, ONGC. Then Reliance Jio. Then Power Grid. So if you notice, almost about 4 companies in the top 10 are government-owned. Okay, next I'm moving to again back to Income Tax Act. This is again general term. Who is defined as a person in Income Tax Act? person, meaning of person. First is, of course, an individual. Individual like me, like you, is a person for the provisions of Income Tax Act. Hindu undivided family is actually a person for Income Tax Act. A company, a private limited company or a public limited company or a LLP, single ownership company, is a person. A firm, a partnership firm, LLP firm, they're all a person. An association of persons or a body of individuals, whether incorporated or not a local authority, is a person. And then every artificial juridical person not falling within any of the preceding subclasses is a person. So basically, there are about 6 categories which are defined for determining who is a person. Okay. Then next is relative. Uh, who is a relative? See, why I'm basically telling you all these things is this is more from the point of view of how the income tax determines who is liable to pay tax and how people also evade tax by using some methods. Like so that's why there are a lot of definitions which are given, including the relative. So spouse of the individual means either a husband or a wife is actually is a relative person. Brother or sister of the individual is a relative person. Brother or sister of the spouse of the individual is a relative. Brother or sister of either of the parents of the individual, like your we call it as Chikappa and Dodappa. They're all the relatives, and any lineal ascendant or descendant of the individual means your father, your mother, or your son or daughter is a relative, and any lineal ascendant or descendant of the spouse. So you are basically wife or husband's. Uh, again, basically in terms of ascendants means their father and mother, husbands or wives. Then spouse of the person referred to in clause 2 and 2 to 4. Basically, brother or sister of the individual का spouse भी relative हो जाएगा. Okay. Then just to understand what is income, what is receipt. Okay. That's why I made it very clear that income, if you look at my first slide, what I said was the purpose of the Income Tax Act. Who is liable to pay tax in respect of which income? So we need to define what is income here. So coming back to this slide, we need to have more clarity on what is income and what is receipt. So income tax is levied only on income of assessee and not on every receipt. So that's why most of the time what happens is, if you are filing your income tax return, I will ask first is, okay, you give me your bank statement. Okay, bank statement, he will understand okay, what kind of income, what kind of credits have come to the bank account. Then he will ask you some doubts. Okay, what is this receipt? Where did you get this receipt from? He will determine, okay, whether this is an income or whether this is a receipt only. So all receipts cannot be income. Okay, so receipts are categorized as revenue receipt and capital receipt. Okay, how to differentiate whether it is a receipt or whether it is a income? We have to. There are various rules and regulations or provisions which will determine whether this is a receipt or this is a receipt which is deemed to be income or receipt which is not deemed to be income. Okay. I will talk about these things a little more on later slides. Amount received by way of substitution or addition of income is revenue receipt. So, for example, let's say you have a salaried income, but what happens is due to unforeseen reason, you are hospitalized and you are not able to attend the office for let's say 2 months. Okay, you are bedridden and you are not able to attend for 2 months. But because of that, your salary is foregone. What happens is you will still be compensated by some other source. Like for example, there would be a let's say a kind of an insurance, group insurance, which will support you during this time of substitute, wherein you have not been able to attend the work. So that substitute income provided by either insurance or any other mode, including ESI and all that, that actually is deemed as a salary. Okay. Whereas, let's say during that time, you are getting some loans from your friends, your colleagues, though it is a substitute for your income, salary income, but it is not a income for the purpose of income tax. It is merely a receipt. You may have received some donation also. Maybe like somebody would have said, your management would have said, okay, fine, you're not able to attend. I'll give you 50,000 as a compensatory this thing. That may not be deemed as income at all. That may be deemed as donation and then forgotten. That is not taxed actually. Okay. Whereas surrender of certain rights or termination of source of income is a capital receipt, not a revenue receipt. For example, you have a land, okay, and that land is getting acquired by government because of road widening. For example, let's say no road widening, they'll give you okay per square feet some 1,000 rupee or 2,000 rupee, or let's say you have 10 acres of land which is next to the highway, and highway expansion is going on, so they are acquiring your land for 10 acres. They'll say, let's say they'll give you 10 lakh per acre. Okay, that income, that receipt is actually capital receipt, not a revenue receipt, which is taxable. Capital receipt gets taxed under a different provision, which is capital gains, not as a revenue receipt. Okay. Then just other things to be noted is the fact that receipt is a periodic receipt or a single receipt is immaterial for the purpose of determining its nature, whether it is income or not. The periodicity is not a factor to be considered. The name given to a transaction not necessarily decides whether it is an income transaction, a transaction liable for income tax or not liable for income tax. Name cannot be determined. Or name is not a determining factor. Okay, I'll just move into the next slide. This is the inflation projection. Okay, this is just which is a talk of the town now. Today, everybody talks about inflation. The inflation projected for 2022 is about 6.1%. This is by IMF, and 2023 for India is about 4.8%. And if you notice, Russia is about 21% due to the various factors of war, and 2023 is about still high 14%. And US, if you notice, 7.7%. That is the main reason that interest rates in US is increasing. That is also the one of the reason where inflation in India is also has increased, and the RBI has taken measures to increase the interest rate, repo rate. We call it as repo rate by about 0.5% today. Today the announcement has been made. So effectively, last in the month of May also there was an increase, and in the month of June also there is an increase. So effectively about 0.9% there is an increase. Not 0.9, 0.75% there is an increase in last 2 months. This is mainly to control the inflation. Okay. But what happens is how this affects is automatically loan interest rates will go up, which means people who have loans like housing loan, for example, or corporates having a overdraft facility or a term loan, their interest rates will go up. Automatically, their spending power will come down, which means demand will come down, which means supply will get adjusted because of currently there will be oversupply. Oversupply will get adjusted with the less demand, and automatically prices will start coming down. So that is the whole effect why RBI plays this role of increasing the interest rate or reducing the interest rate. Okay, next, this is more statistics. The most profitable American company is Apple. In India, TCS being the most profitable company. Apple is the most profitable company in US, United States. Next is Berkshire Hathaway, which is the Warren Buffett owned company. One of the world's richest man today, Warren Buffett. Other than Tim Cook or Steve Jobs earlier, who was owning Apple. The Alphabet is nothing but Google, Microsoft. We have then JP Morgan is the finance leader in the US. Meta platform is nothing but Facebook now. Earlier Facebook, then Amazon, Bank of America, Exxon Mobil, and Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae is the housing loan lender. Okay, again, I'm just going back just to make it certain thing is clear. The term income includes the following types of income: legal income or illegal income, or both, or none of the above. Can anyone answer this first question? Just to understand, can anyone answer?
A. Legal.
Okay.
Oh, the term income includes the following type of income. No, sir, it is C, sir. Sorry.
Yeah. Correct.
Legal and illegal, both.
Yes, both legal and illegal becomes income from the perspective of Income Tax Act. So, from the perspective of Income Tax Act, both legal and illegal becomes income. Okay, next is receipt of amount on maturity of LIC policy, whether it is a
It's a revenue receipt.
Revenue receipt. Okay. No, the thing is, it is not a revenue receipt, it is a capital receipt. That is
Capital receipt, sir. Capital receipt.
It is not liable for tax.
The sum assured is not taxable.
No, whatever income you receive, that is not taxed actually.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Next is which of the following is revenue receipt? So in this case, insurance receipt for loss of stock, that is a revenue receipt.
Some voice is coming. Please mute yourself, everyone.
अशोक जी आपका माइक ऑन हाँ ओके थैंक यू
Yeah. So I will just tell you, insurance received for loss of stock, that is a revenue receipt. Compensation for surrender of rights, compensation for loss of future profits, subsidy from government in the normal course of business. Okay. All these four, barring one, is a revenue receipt. So which is not a revenue receipt, I'll just again go back to this slide. Here I've just given you amount received by way of substitution or addition of an income is revenue receipt. Surrender of certain rights or termination of source of income is a capital receipt. So here, compensation of loss of future profits, okay, compensation for surrender of rights. These two are the challengers. So here, compensation for loss of future profits is actually a revenue receipt, okay, because profit is taxable, whereas compensation for surrender of rights, okay, is not a revenue receipt, it is a capital receipt. Like for example, this is you, let's say you surrender your right of land holding for construction of highway or construction of metro or construction of dam or anything. So compensation for loss of surrender of rights is a capital receipt. Okay, next is compensation for cancellation of license by the government resulting in loss of profit. Is it a casual receipt, a capital receipt, a revenue receipt, or none of the above? So it is actually a revenue receipt. Means resulting in loss of profit basically is a revenue receipt. Okay, now I will just briefly touch upon salary. Okay, so salary is basically covered under the section of 17(1) in the Income Tax Act, which includes monetary as well as non-monetary. Okay, what is a non-monetary payment here? Non-monetary payment is, for example, I will tell you, company is giving a car. Okay, company is giving a car for you to use for commuting from home to office and back. Okay, it is just giving you a car. Okay, but why it is a income? Because it is actually a non-monetary income. It is associated as a compensation. As a compensation, the company has given you a car, though there is no value associated for it. Like car can be any car. Like it can be a Maruti Alto car, or it can be a BMW car. Okay, but irrespective of that, it is more deemed as a non-monetary benefit given by the company, and there is a value attached to it. So that value is treated as an income, non-monetary. Monetary is like your salary. You're getting your basic salary, your DNS allowance, your HRA, your conveyance, which is in terms of money paid to you, credited to your bank account, or given by way of cash. That is a monetary benefit. So monetary benefit, for example, pension is a monetary benefit, gratuity is a monetary benefit, leave encashment is a monetary benefit, allowances, annuity, they are all monetary benefit. Whereas perquisite need not be monetary benefit. Let's say what happens is nowadays it has come down, but in olden days, when we had the large corporates, the company used to take care of everything. Like MD means managing director means his house is owned by the company. They used to give maid servants. They used to give a gardener to look after the garden. They used to provide you a car. They used to provide you a car driver also, and they used to give you, let's say, some 5,000 liters of petrol. Example, 5,000 liters is too high. Maybe let's say 100 liter of petrol free. Then they used to pay your electricity bill. They used to pay, let's say, your laundry. So many benefits were given by the company to an employee. Employee means not just a normal employee, but a managerial employee. Let's say managing director or a director or a chief executive officer. That kind of a designated person. They used to give that benefit. So lot of things. What used to happen is they used to go under the disguise of perquisite, and your income would have been very less. Your bank credit would have been lesser only. But the perquisite has a value attached, and then it gets taxed. Okay. Then next is allowances. Allowances can be classified into following categories. One is fully taxable. allowances which are exempted for specific amount, allowances which are exempted on the basis of actual expenditure, allowances which are fully exempt. Okay, so one example I can give you under the each this thing is fully taxable. Like for example, dearness allowance. Okay, dearness allowance is a fully taxable element. Then next is allowances which are exempted for a specific amount. Let's say you have a conveyance allowance. Conveyance allowance, though company pays you, let's say some X amount, 5,000 rupees, only specific amount is exempted. Balance is taxed. Okay. Then allowances which are exempted on the basis of actual expenditure. For example, house rent allowance. House rent allowance is there is a calculation by which the exempted amount is known based on the actual expenditure made, actual rent paid by the person to the landlord. So based on that, it gets exempted. Then allowances which are fully exempt. Okay. In some cases, like for example, in high altitude areas, okay, like Darjeeling or Kashmir, Ladakh, and all that. Due to high altitude, there is some kind of a high altitude allowance paid by the company to the employee. Okay, those are exempted. Okay, under the Income Tax Act, that allowance paid is exempted. Okay. Then next, some basic thing is it is charged on due or receipt basis, whichever is earlier. So, for example, what happens is sometimes you are saying you would have said that I won't be able to. I mean, there is a festival at home or there is a family emergency, medical emergency. So you please pay me in advance my salary. Okay, advance salary. In some cases, company is not doing well. Company will say, no, this month I will not be able to pay salary for you. I will pay you next month as arrears. Okay. So in both cases, what happens? Though technically, in first case, you have not earned it, but it is paid in advance. In second case, you have not earned. You are eligible for it, but you are not paid for it. You have not got the credit. So in first case, what happens is the amount paid in advance is not taxable, whereas in second case, though you have not earned it, though you have earned it, but you have not paid it, but for income tax purpose, even if it is due, it becomes taxable. So arrears salary technically means, for example, in the month of March, you are supposed to get the salary, but you never got the salary, but it is a taxable income. Okay, just want to make you lighter. You don't have to feel bad that what I have not been able to understand Income Tax Act. Yes, the hardest thing to understand in the world is income tax. This is applicable. That's the reason, like government keeps coming up with a lot of circulars, lot of amendments, but still many people find it difficult to understand income tax. That is the reason there are a lot of litigations in the courts with respect to income tax. This is on the lighter side. This is one more thing is, when there is income tax, the just man will pay more and the unjust less on the same amount of income. Okay, this is the like crux of the whole Income Tax Act. I mean, how it can be misused by people, how it can be ethically regulated and unethically misused. Just an example how the Income Tax Act is run in the country. Okay, just want to end the session. Please let me know of any doubts, any clarifications, and going forward, I'll be able to give more practical examples, all from the salaries point of view, income from house property point of view, and all sources of income. I will try and give more practical experiences so that examples so that it can be helpful for all of you.
Madhurji, what is the government take on present standing of the income tax receipt? Because presently, whatever the percentage of the income tax is received by the government of India, hardly well below the 5%, I hope, if I'm not wrong. So, is there any hard stance the government is trying to take to increase that?
Yes, definitely. In fact, direct taxes revenue has actually increased substantially. Okay, indirect taxes, of course, the corporate tax is the major one, but individual taxes also, the number of assessees, the number of return filers have gone up by almost, like two to three times compared to last 3 years.
Okay. So, what is the actual percentage in terms of percentage? What is the percentage of people paying income tax across India?
Yeah, see, in terms of direct taxes revenue, what has happened is in India, the earlier scenario, indirect tax revenue was the highest, which is indirect tax revenue means your customs duty, your excise duty, your VAT, all that was the highest. Okay. Now what has happened is for last, basically the government this thing. This thing, direct corporate tax or rather income tax, and corporate tax both put together is almost doubled compared to our GST. Okay, if GST is about 1 rupee, the income tax and corporate tax both put together is 2 rupees now.
Okay.
So almost double the GST.
So, do you mean to say that the personal or the business houses have started paying more, or the number of business houses has increased? What is the statistics here?
Number of assessees have increased, which basically the number of income tax payers in individual firm or a company, they have increased. Number of income tax returns filing people.
Okay.
Either it can be an individual or a company or a business. That has increased substantially.
Okay. One more thing, basically, when there was some suggestions given by the economists and some of the financial analysts in India about TOT, why is it not implemented than the income tax only? They are only still dragging on with the income tax laws only. Is there any drawback with the TOT?
Turnover tax.
Not turnover tax. The charge tax on every transaction, tax on transaction, transaction tax.
No, that it requires a larger understanding. Okay, this is also our Dr. Subramaniam Swamy. He also is propagating that we have to do away with income tax. We have to get into transaction tax. But it requires, see, in a country like India, it is not an easy task. Even if you notice when the GST was implemented, there was so much backlash from traders, from people who wanted to implement it, people who wanted to comply with it. There was a lot of backlash. One is, first is what they are trying to do is they are trying to reduce the black income or transactions which does not come under the purview of tax, means cash transactions they are trying to reduce. So that's why digital transactions, though it has increased tremendously by 5 times, it almost reached about 6 billion transactions, but still there are cash transactions going on. Okay. Which will never come under the purview of any tax. Cash transactions will never come under the purview of any tax. So first they want to arrest that cash transaction at all. I mean, reduce the cash transaction percentage. But in a country like India, and in a country like India where people don't want to comply with laws, it is time bound. It will take a lot of time. It will take a lot of efforts from both state governments, central governments, then the public at large, banks at large. Everybody has to get involved. Consensus has to come. Second thing, involvement means voluntarily people have to get involved themselves. Then only it can be implemented. And we don't know what is going to be the impact. Transaction tax, we can say that, but how it will impact our economy, how it will affect our collections, whether it will be able to match the existing revenue sources. All that is a challenge. And government, I think, wants to go one by one. Like first they did the GST, then 2 years back, not 2 years, 1 year back, they came out with the income tax website change itself. The entire website has got revamped now, as you all know. So they want to take one step at a time. You can't do everything. And also political pressures. Political pressures will always be there. They also need to win state elections continuously, so that they get more Rajya Sabha members. Then only their bills will get passed. Otherwise, bills will never get passed. So winning state elections also is political. See, one is economical reason. Second is political reason. Also is major thing. Like we know, yesterday there was a pro-Khalistani demonstration in front of Golden Temple in Amritsar. So there are a lot of things politically motivated. The current incident of this Kanpur violence, how to mitigate that. There are a lot of challenges. It's not just economic challenge, but political challenges also are tremendous for Indian government. And on top of that, people who want to evade tax, even after GST getting implemented, there are a lot of fake bills getting circulated, and they take income tax, GST input tax, and then claim refund, and they get caught. They're getting caught. People are getting arrested, including CAs, chartered accountants who have assisted such malpractices are getting arrested also.
Yeah, these days chartered accountants are basically have a lot of accountability on what they are doing here. Earlier, it was, even though it was there on paper, it was not so strict, but today it has become, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever you worked for it, you are taking responsibility for it today.
Correct.
As a CA, yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason CAs also are very reluctant to support these black transactions. But there are still a lot of CAs,
How is that happening, Madhuji? Basically, see, I am fighting a case in NCLT, which we have filed for 1.7 crore, and the CA, even though we did all the transactions into the bank account of the company, CA did not present that bank statement and said whatever the company has produced the results, they are absolutely fine. Only he gave the year-end accounts, the bank statement with the CA note will be given, right? That is given directly. How that is possible?
Audit reports.
Audit report. Along with the audit report, there will be a CA report also written, right? One or 2 pages.
Yeah. The
notes.
Part of the audit report and notes.
Correct.
No, that depends on the nature of the case involved, what documents they want, or maybe the CA wants to give one information at a time, not all information at a time, just to understand how the reaction is and all that. It also depends on each case for that particular company.
No, basically, see, he didn't even show the receipts of that financial year in which we all paid. That is what I'm talking. Without showcasing that, he just said, this is the incomes and the receipts, just excluding our amounts. He showed that and it said, this is as per the records given to me, and he watched it, and that is filed in the income tax filing also.
Oh, he did not ask for bank statement also.
That was not produced, or I don't know what is the customer, what is that company did. And that's where we're fighting on that, basically. That's what we want to know, understand whether our case is getting diluted or it has still strength. Because it's all went into the bank account.
Oh, no. No, without bank statement, he cannot even audit actually. We need to probably understand more. If you can share more details, I'll just be able to understand that.
Yeah.
And see the other thing is auditors also, CAs, they cannot understand, or they cannot fully comprehend the entire business of full year within just a span of 10 days or 15 days. You come, you do the audit, you vouch, do some sample transaction review, and then certify. So it also depends on the management, how much they want to reveal the information to the CA. Okay. And management, many a times, they don't reveal a lot of information to the CAs.
No, that is absolutely true. Only to the extent when you're talking about sales, I totally agree with you. But they cannot give away with the bank statements, right? Bank statement is a minimum requirement to be presented to the CA, and CA also definitely will ask for the bank statement. How that is missed is what we are looking at.
So that is, I think, miss actually. Bank statement is crucial. Without bank statement review, auditor cannot certify.
Yes,
it is what he has done is wrong. It's not right.
That is exactly what we are looking at. Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thanks for giving a lot of information on this session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I think we are taking a lot of personal time here and wasting everybody's time. Sorry.
No issues. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
मधु सर,
चलिए राजीव जी,
वंडरफुल सर, बहुत अच्छा आपने जानकारी दी सर, बहुत बढ़िया। इनकम टैक्स वैसे बहुत आसान नहीं समझना, आपने भी कहा। इसको और समझने के लिए काफ़ी कुछ जानना ज़रूरी है। और भी कोई हमारे साथी कुछ पूछना चाहें या कुछ कहना चाहें तो मधु सर से आप कुछ पूछ सकते हैं इनकम टैक्स से संबंधित। और कोई सवाल किसी के मन में? अरुण सर, क्या समाप्त करेंगे सर अभी हम?
कोई नहीं, अभी आप
इनकम टैक्स,
हाँ बिल्कुल समापन कीजिए। उसके पहले जरा रविशेखर जी,
हेलो,
एक मिनट, रविशेखर जी।
हाँ
जी, अभी महाराष्ट्र में 12 का रिजल्ट आज डिक्लेयर हो गया है। हाँ। तो अगर नेक्स्ट वेडनेसडे हम लोग को 12 पास लोगों के लिए क्या ऑप्शन है, इसके ऊपर कुछ कर सकते हैं क्या? करेंगे। ठीक है, आप प्रिपेयर करिए, फिर नेक्स्ट बुधवार को जो है ना, वो कर लेते हैं।
हाँ सर,
नेक्स्ट बुधवार को जो अभी 12 का रिजल्ट लग गया है, रविशेखर जी का सेशन है, उसके बाद फिर आपका मतलब
करेक्ट सर। वो आई मीन एसेंशियल है, वो लोगों को समझने के लिए क्या लेना है, क्या स्टडी कर।
वही है कि अभी जो दोज हुआ पास, they don't know what to do after that. Most people, their parent also doesn't know. So I think we should guide them. Definitely, sir. But only thing is, the parents nor the students, they are not attending. That is a challenge which we are looking at, right? We'll take the efforts. Just if you put the message prior onwards and ask them to join, it is for their benefit. Nothing. We are not gaining anything. We are working towards for them. Tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I will post for this Wednesday program and subject.
advance.
Sure, sir. Sure.
So
And
please be ready.
not only posting it, sir, during the sessions, like the next 2 days, 3 days sessions will be there, right? During that time also, in between.
Yeah. We'll also announce.
That will be better because we want people to take advantage of the infrastructure what we are able to.
Yeah. राजू जी,
जी सर जी।
अगर कॉमर्स के बारे में कुछ जानकारी देना है तो
आप भी ज्वाइन कीजिए, मधु जी आप भी ज्वाइन कीजिए। तो हम लोग सब मिलकर करते उसको।
ठीक है सर।
Madhuji, it is something like this. Basically, if the students are passed out of 12th, what are the options in general for anybody? It is not only for science grads or humanities. We need to tell them what are the options, wide opportunities available. Tomorrow, if they do this type of courses, what could be the job opportunities or the business opportunities they can pursue? This is the main intention from our side. What we need to tell them.
Right, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes,
please
right.
Try to put your inputs also so that it will be easy for us to share some time between you and me, and we can do that.
Fine, sir. Fine.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, Raju ji.
जी। ओके। तो आज
राजू जी समाधान
जी
करिए, समापन कीजिए। बहुत अच्छा सेशन है, मधु जी ने बहुत अच्छी जानकारी दी है।
जी। तो आज का सेशन जो था इनकम टैक्स एक हमारे लिए अब तक का नया सब्जेक्ट था जो मधु सर ने लिया है। इनकम टैक्स में बहुत सी बातें हैं। इनकम टैक्स एक्ट से सर ने शुरू किया। इनकम क्या होता है, एसएससी कौन होते हैं, असेसमेंट ईयर क्या होता है, फाइनेंशियल ईयर क्या है, इनकम टैक्स क्यों है, टैक्सेबल इनकम क्या है, नॉन टैक्सेबल इनकम क्या है, अलाउंसेस टैक्सेबल है नहीं है, ये बहुत सारी बातें जो इनकम टैक्स से संबंधित है सर ने काफ़ी डिटेल में बताया है। इनकम टैक्स वैसे तो बहुत वास्ट सब्जेक्ट है, इसमें और भी सेशंस होंगे। कई सारे डाउट्स अगर जिनके मन में अभी भी अगर होंगे तो वो नेक्स्ट सेशन में सर से बात कर सकते हैं। इनकम टैक्स एक काफ़ी अच्छा सब्जेक्ट है हम सभी के लिए, तो इसे हमें जानना ज़रूरी है। मधु सर, आपका सेशन बहुत ही बढ़िया रहा। आपने बहुत ही एग्जाम्पल के द्वारा या बहुत सिंपल लैंग्वेज में आपने समझाया है। आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद इस वंडरफुल सेशन के लिए। और जो भी हमारे साथी आज इस सेशन में उपस्थित हुए हैं सभी का धन्यवाद। और मैं आज एक बार फिर से हम सभी की ओर से मधु सर को हार्दिक धन्यवाद देता हूँ। और इसी के साथ आज की गूगल मीट जो है ये समाप्ति की घोषणा करता हूँ। आप सभी का धन्यवाद। गुड नाइट, शुभ रात्रि।
राजू जी, नेक्स्ट वेडनेसडे हम लोग ये 12 पास लोगों के लिए मतलब आप हिंदी में थोड़ा सा मतलब उसको ट्रांसलेट करने के लिए एफर्ट करिए।
अच्छा, ठीक है सर, ठीक, मैं कोशिश करूंगा सर। कभी सर क्या है ना, बहुत मुश्किल से आज का सेशन हुआ है। आज के सेशन में बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है, कभी मुश्किल हो जाता है उसको ट्रांसलेट करना, बट ठीक है, मैं ट्राई करूंगा उसको जितना हो। जी बिल्कुल।
ठीक है, नेक्स्ट वेडनेसडे ही करेंगे।
जी ठीक है बिल्कुल।
और इसका रिकॉर्डिंग भेज दीजिए तो मैं पोस्ट कर दूंगा।
हाँ, मैं भी कुछ देर में करता हूँ सर।
ओके, थैंक यू वेरी मच। थैंक यू रविशेखर जी, मधु जी, थैंक यू एवरीबॉडी। गुड नाइट, शुभ रात्रि।
थैंक यू ऑल, गुड नाइट।
Madhu ji, we are conducting this meeting of multi-cooperative credit society this Sunday, so please try to join it for you.
Sunday, sir.
Sunday, sir. Yeah.
Okay, fine, sir.
Right, because it suddenly got stopped, and recently there was some function happened in Hyderabad. So at that time, 4 or 5 people met, and we thought we discussed it that we'll need to bring this again to life. And
right, sir.
So this week we'll again discuss. And we are almost at the closing of it, so let us finalize it and start doing the incorporation and all that stuff.
Fine, sir. We can do that.
Right, sir?
Yeah,
because you played a crucial role in preparing the draft of the bylaws and all that. So I don't want you to play because you know majority of it than any other person in the team.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, sir.
Right, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you all. Good night, Shubh Ratri. Good night.